recording. Sweet. So we'll keep it at that. And just to kind of recap from last time, basically we're in assignment 3 and it's quite different from assignment 1 and assignment 2. As you guys know, last time we got shortly abrupted by the fire drill, and that's okay. Obviously here for our part 2. Just to recap last time, we went over making grids and of course, 3 different iterations that are being asked for this project, and of course that it could be done 3 different ways. To be fair, these could be very close iterations, so you could complete one and then simply actually just move stuff around in order to go a little bit faster. Does that make sense, guys? Right, I don't necessarily have to start from scratch every single time, right? I really can use either the same grids or really some of even the same shapes if you just want to kind of slowly move them around, or try iteration 1 versus iteration 2 and 3. So this one could take a weekend, right, for sure. I'm obviously going to let you guys work on Thursday and pretty much all of Tuesday, with this being probably a Miro screenshot turn-in that Tuesday. This one does take a little while, as it is kind of the seed in the beginning of our observation towers, even though I haven't really released that yet. However, if you've seen all the models everywhere, of course, that is kind of the idea and where we're going with this. However, if I just asked you to design an observation tower, it'd be a lot different than if we actually sculpt it and we treat it a little bit more like a studio's project. And to be fair, this one looks really good as even a studio project for your portfolios, right? Because it does have the model attachment. Most computer graphics courses don't even touch the laser cutter. So we'll definitely be adding the laser cutter not only to models but also drawings. So I do want to show you that we can do some pretty cool pop-up stuff and diagramming, of course, with the laser cutter and its precision. Anyway, we left off last time with step 1 and step 2, basically composing something with 16 lines, a couple of curves. I think I'm actually missing some of my layers. Let me get some layers in there. Yep, there's my layers. And make sure everything's back. I think I had a hatching layer in there. Yep, don't really need the hatching right now, but of course we might need it for the 2 dimensions. Of course, keeping some good organization, right? We have step 1 and step 2, step 3. This is really good because I came back to it like, man, what was I doing last Tuesday? Great. I am so glad that I put these steps down. Welcome, guys. We're just going over part 2. So really, we got to about last time, I think we made a wall, right? We extruded one item, and that wasn't too bad. However, just continuing on, we definitely want something with a little bit more thickness than that. In fact, I would even treat it architectural, so I'm going to go with either 6 inches or 12 inches. However, one of the best ways, and you guys may have learned this in the last step of assignment 2, is that we can offset surfaces, right? So if you go to offset surf, you can actually choose the direction. So if you click on the object, we can offset it this way, we can offset it that way. Actually, you can offset it both ways if you want to. Like for instance, you can select both sides and it'll go both ways. However, keep in mind it'll go the distance both ways. So if I click both sides and say I want 6 inches, I'll have to put in 3 inches because it's gonna, of course, make 3 inches on both sides. I'll hit enter, enter again, and voila, we got a wall. Done. Right, so not too shabby there. Now, to honestly get rid or start populating this with the rest of the items. However, this is where I want you to be kind of free with it, and also why I made the grid first, because it does start to imply that there's maybe some sort of structural connection. For instance, that grid going straight through is most likely going to hold that plane up. Definitely not too bad, right? So really just want you to sculpt. And we do need to get the rest of these items. So there's a couple of ways to sculpt, and to be fair, we could still even wire cut some of these things as well. So I'm going to go ahead and extrude just a couple of them. And one of the first things I noticed is that I can close this box. I don't necessarily know if I want to close this or perhaps make actually a rhythm out of it, a rhythm of masses. I mean, after all, it is just a circle on the ground. There's really no indication that there is actually maybe even 1,000 of these. So let's actually make quote-unquote spaces, right? So in my case, I'm going to go with 24 inches and get a couple of those. However, I could sit here and just, copy them over and over again and just go copy. So something like this. But that's a little inaccurate, and you may notice like the spacing's really off about that. I mean, if I'm just doing something kind of sketchy, maybe it's not so bad. But another trick and tool that we can have is called array, So ARRAY. And you can click on this array, and you can actually choose the number that you want. So in my case, I'll choose the X direction. I only want 1. In my Y direction, I only want 1. But in my Z direction, maybe I want 12, right? Maybe I'm trying to stack 12 of them. So I'm going to hit 12, enter. It's going to ask for a base point. So my Z point, I'm going to actually go to my right viewport, click, and you'll see, oops, I got the wrong direction. I guess I should have chosen the Y direction because it's definitely not going up, but it's definitely going to the side. Let's try that again. Enter. So number of X, 1, number of Y, 12, and number of Z, 0, or, sorry, 1. You can't actually choose 0. So we'll do that. Again, click my base point. There we go. Right, so now I can get some equal spacing. And, you know, I don't mind it kind of breaking the box a little bit, right? I mean, break the rules a little bit. But it's basically giving us a preview going, hey, is this what you meant? Yep, I'm going to hit enter, and we are good to go, right? And to be fair, that's way easier. It's much more accurate. And to be fair, this is how I usually make grids in general, right? I'll just make all the grids, or actually some of the art that I'll do, I definitely use array and the power of that. You can also have polar array, but we'll see if that actually comes up or not. But for the most part, this is sculptural. So, you know, if I deem something sort of unworthy, I can totally take it out. So something like that, you know, I don't necessarily think I need that one. And I'll go with something kind of nice. You know, 7 and 4. Kind of cool numbers there. But again, entirely sculptural. You're not making anything architecture yet. Don't worry, we'll slowly, step by step. Honestly, the next assignment is stairs. So I'm going to teach you how to just make great stairs in Rhino very easily, and a couple different ways we can do that. And by the way, that one helps with Studio a lot, right? I mean, I don't know how many times we've struggled with stairs, or we make one stair, we just copy it a bunch of times. And, you know, it does the trick for a little while. But we definitely want to become more professional modelers when it comes to this technology. Anyway, we've got our grids. We've got some more pieces. Let's keep going. I've got a piece here. That's looking pretty sweet. Maybe I actually want to offset the surface first. So offset. I'm going to go with, well, not surface, sorry. Just a regular offset. There is a couple. And I'll do 6 inches. That's fine. So 6 inches, enter. And I'll click on the outside. I could click on the inside too. In my case, I'm going to take both of those and extrude them. And as you can see, it's going to create a nice voided solid object for us. Again, just being sculptural. Oh, make sure I actually get it. There we go. And what's nice, the reason I kind of did that together is so that, well, I could put them together like that. And that's looking pretty good. I kind of like that floating look with a couple of spaces inside. It's starting to intersect with that piece. Again, starting to look pretty neat. And again, I could start to decide, well, this is looking too complex. Maybe I actually get rid of this one and this one. So again, it can be entirely sort of arbitrary, right? Ambiguous, if you will. Let's also get this one, extrude. And you know me, I like to do the entire project for you guys. So in my case, I'm going to unclick solid, kind of see that there's multiple ways we can make stuff. And to be fair, I could use all 4 viewports here. I could really dial in some stuff. Oops, didn't really mean to do that. It's okay, I can go to set view and go back to my left view. Sweet. But that's looking pretty good. I'm going to go with that. And maybe stick it about right there. That's looking pretty sweet. Now, line it up with that one a little bit. And again, this one can take a little bit longer, I will say. Let's get some offset surface going on. We do want thicknesses to all our pieces. I want to inset it, and I want to go pretty small with, say, like 3 inches, enter. Oh, it's going to get both sides because I had both sides clicked. Not a big deal, but it does break the diagram a little bit. That's okay. I really like what's going on in there, but I want to see it a little bit better. So another thing that I could do is still wire cut to all these objects. So again, that's kind of the region that I'm trying to get in there. So I'm going to draw a circle, just kind of anywhere. Again, it's always going to be on that that plane, right? The plane that it's either going to be on this plane or that green plane. So of course we got to find it a little bit, and of course I drew it in red, so it's going to be a little hard to find. Where'd it go? I could always do this. Kind of sketch everything, and there it is. Of course, it got a lot of things else. So, oh, there it is off in the distance. Not sure why, actually. Maybe I accidentally moved my C-plane. Not a big deal. So in my case here, what I would do is basically find that circle again. And it can be a tad difficult. Nope, nope. It's there somewhere. Maybe I can't see it. I'm not sure what's going on. Let's try again. Got that piece. There's that circle. I guess I could also hold, Option on the Mac and deselect some items. Man, why can't I get that circle? Where the hell is it? In fact, let's find it. Okay. I want to find it in this view though. Okay, there it is. Way over here, somehow. I don't know about you guys, do you see a circle there? I don't see it. It can mess up. I mean, don't get me wrong. Sometimes your graphics card is, oh, there it is, way out in the middle of nowhere. Okay, so glad we could find it out. But some of the reasons that I do that also for you guys is so that you can kind of troubleshoot as well. Even though that was a very much real troubleshoot situation, I definitely didn't see where it was. You can also extrude from Gumball. I don't really recommend it, and as you can see, it's very easy to do it on accident. So just be kind of careful. There is multiple in there. But of course, what we were trying to accomplish is a wire cut. So I don't want to extrude that. I don't know why it's not letting me move it. Let's just move it. Sorry. Wire cut that little piece. And let's refocus on what we're looking at. There we go. Very nice. So wire cut. So again, we can still wire cut all of this stuff. Of course, it does have to be closed, and it is closed. We have to get my circle. Looks like I spelled wire cut wrong, my bad. Enter. We'll go straight through the entire piece, why not? And we'll even keep that piece, and as you can see, dang, that would have taken me forever to figure out and model that. And that's looking pretty sweet. So not only do I have a circle from the top, and nobody would know it, but we have a circle from the side view as well. So pretty sweet, and actually relatively easy compared. I mean, can you imagine if you had to model this in real time? Heck no, you'd be sitting there forever being like, I hate it. Oh, well, just move it then, right? And that would be, again, such a game changer for what we do in architecture. But again, just continuing to build the model. I'm only going to build one of them for us today. However, keep in mind that you're in charge of 3, and I will kind of go over some easier steps after we finish this one. But let's continue that extrude process. Really nothing much to it. In my case, I'm going to go with a solid this time. Why not? I don't know. I kind of want to establish some levels or floors. So I'm going to go with 12 inches here. And maybe we keep that one. Again, I can do multiple copies because, well, that was just kind of the floor plan. So I'm going to do a copy. I'm going to place one on this grid, that grid, maybe that grid. And again, just to kind of establish some architectural levels, if you will, right? And it starts to kind of establish that for us. Starts to be some pretty intricate spaces. And to be fair, I do want to kind of think architecture a little bit, right? Yeah, there's some interaction with some other parts, not too big. I could chop that off one day, but again, this is absolutely sculptural. We don't need to think necessarily architecturally yet, but I'm just encouraging it. I want to reset my view to a 2-point perspective just because I kind of want to see what it looks like so far. And I really like the 2-point because it really gives it that drama. You guys see that? It's kind of that, like, sort of the closer I am to the ground, the more it kind of flares up and gives it that sort of dramatic spatial look. I don't know, sometimes I just like a good preview. And to be fair, even sometimes I'll go into a rendered mode and see what it looks like so far. Oh yeah, I forgot I put the Seattle library as our background. So right now it's of course in the Seattle library. My bad, but it's kind of cool, you know, it looks like we're in the middle of downtown. Didn't really mean to do that, but again, sometimes it's nice to see what this looks like so far in a shade and shadow environment. But let's keep going, right? At least for 20 minutes or so, see how far we can get. What was I doing? Oh yeah, kind of want to take this at a 2-point because it can get a little dizzying, so at least for the recording as well. So set view, and we'll go back to, say, a regular isometric, and that's fine too. Let's zoom in back on that again. So I'm just going to pick any element and of course zoom that with zoom selected and get the rest of my parts. So as you can see, it's getting quite complex. I might actually want to get a little bit more organized. So in my case, maybe I need some more layers, or in my case, obviously this is all the layers I've accumulated over the projects. Please don't do that because, as you guys know, it can become extremely confusing. But for instance, I could say grid objects versus planar objects. Of course, got to spell those correctly, but in my case, I just want to differentiate and be able to turn things off if it's getting too complex. So in my case, it's definitely getting too complex. I may need to actually re-highlight some of these things, which can be a task in itself, to be honest. Nope, we want that one, we want that one. And of course, in my case, it's a planar object, so I'm gonna switch that layer. And again, now it's gold, and I missed a few, that's okay. But what's nice is I can turn that off, especially if it's getting too complex. And I can get some of these other pieces that I've already made, and we can turn that into, again, some planar objects. So I'm going to change that object. Of course, they'll go away. There's my grid objects again. I don't really want to select those all one at a time, so I'm going to try and fake it till I make it. Just get all of those. Oh, I got the planar information in there. Not a big deal. I can also just hold shift and unclick those. Oh, wrong button. Don't hold shift. That's to add it. So in my case, I want to get all those pieces and basically just get the ones that I don't need. Man, I cannot figure out my keyboard today. Oh my goodness. I apologize. It's the trouble of doing this live, right? It shows that, you know, I'm not perfect either. No, I wanted that one, so I'll hold shift. And again, sorry, I'm holding control on Windows and command on Macintosh in order to deselect something. So that's looking pretty good. And you can hold that deselect and we can get that piece too. So I just needed my grid elements. Sorry, I kind of went backwards on that one. Change object layer. And of course, if it's getting in the way, you can hide it and of course continue. In my case, I might want the other pieces back. That way I don't accidentally remake the same pieces. And to be fair, those should probably be planar. So let's put them on planar. Sweet. And again, just staying organized with what we're doing. I do need a couple of lines in there, so let's get a couple of those real quick. Extrude. Get some wall surfaces, if you will, or some vertical planes, as Bohuslav would call them. So again, kind of just getting fancy with the spices. I might go back and, of course, wire cut some of these. So let's get that beautiful curve in there. Can't have a composition without that beautiful curve. I don't want to overdo it though, so you know, I'm just going to kind of put it floating up in there. Maybe it intersects some of these items. Awesome. Kind of want to see it in that hole there. Yeah, that's looking pretty sweet. And again, very often I do this exact project with you. I don't laser cut it, but again, I'll basically be kind of sculpting the whole thing. So I am taking my time a little bit, but I don't know. I do want you guys to have a good feeling, right, when you do these yourself, because we run into so many different things as we do it. Extrude, I'm going to go with solid on this one. I don't know, that one seems like it wants to be kind of big. I'm going to take that one. Maybe even subtract it from another, and that would be totally fine. Did I get them all? I think missing a couple of planes in there. Let's get that one. Extrude. I don't know, maybe that one's big. Why not? We haven't gone big or gone home yet, so that's looking pretty sweet. Got the circle in there. I feel like we had another circle, but maybe not. Thought there was another curvilinear element too. There it is. Almost missed it. Let's get that guy as well. So extrude. And not too shabby. But as you can see, quite a geometric mess right now. So we might need to refine a little bit. Let's go ahead and turn on some other elements and see maybe what we need to thicken. So obviously we don't want really thin planar walls. So I'm going to take all of them at once. I mean, why not? Especially if I'm going to make them all the same thickness. So I'm going to get a couple of those. I'm going to offset surface. And of course make them about 6 inches total. I guess I'm going to do both sides so I can keep that midpoint. And go with 3 inches. Enter. And of course it's going to get both sides for us. Man, what a game changer, right? Definitely seems like I need to wire cut some things out, or Boolean difference, or maybe even just shrink some things. Maybe that's too big, right? And that's okay. I don't have enough space at that bottom. I'm really, what I would suggest, especially while doing this composition, is trying to be able to see through each side. So what I would do is take a look at each side and go, can I see all the way through it? Not quite. So don't get me wrong, I mean, I can move stuff around, but I can also wire cut, just as we saw. But as you can tell, I kind of went a little too big, and there's not a whole lot of spaces in there, so I'm either going to need to cut away, especially on that view, Oh, I can start to see a little bit through it on the top, not too bad. Check out that view. Yeah, so far it's pretty solidified, but a lot of opportunity for that space to come about. So let's dive into this thing. I'm going to take a similar shape again. I'm going to take a circle. I definitely like circles. So, and let's go ahead and chop out a lot there. So I'm gonna take that one. Again, I'm gonna have to find my circle. So I'm gonna leave it highlighted this time, and just go to zoom select. Sweet. That way I don't accidentally. I don't know why it's drawing way out there. Maybe my C-plane actually on my right view is way out there, so I might want to check that. Yeah, I think it is. And that would explain it, right? Why it keeps drawing way the heck out there. But anyway, not a big deal. Let's go ahead and wire cut that through a couple of items. So wire cut. And I don't know. It looks like it's going to go through that shape, that shape. I'm going to go with that shape. I don't even think it'll touch that one, so not a big deal there. And hit enter. I'm going to go straight through the object. And as you can see, it's going to even leave the pieces for us because I left that option. So I can either decide to leave it. Ooh, nice. Oh, now we're talking. We got some space going on. I'm going to recenter that. And you can see that I use the zoom selected a lot, right? I mean, I didn't chop through that one. I kind of appreciate that about myself. Great. Let's get rid of that one. That's looking pretty sweet. Okay, now we can start to see through the object, and that's pretty good, right? Definitely didn't cut away too much, didn't cut away too little. I could have swore I got some more objects in there, but maybe not. Maybe? No? I could have swore we got a little bit more than that, but okay. Really? Didn't hit that one? Didn't hit that one? Okay. Well, let's try it again. I'm gonna go with circles, or let's switch it up. Let's go with a square this time. I wouldn't get too fancy with the spices because you can easily make an ugly object, as you guys probably are fully aware of. So let's try and keep a composition. I'm going to try and keep the similar shapes, if you will, that I've already been using in order to make that. And maybe we cut away, I don't know, towards the bottom right there. That's looking pretty sweet. Maybe it cuts through that plane, and maybe just kind of cuts through the top of it. So that's looking pretty sweet. Again, I'm going to go back to my parallel and figure out where the heck that was. And it's way out there, unfortunately. Again, we'd have to change our C-plane to avoid that, but my C-plane is pretty changed, so it could just be an error from screen recording today. Not actually sure. Usually it doesn't do that. So I would verify if yours is doing that as well. But let's cut through some more objects. So we got that piece. And let's wire cut. I'm going to go ahead and cut that one. And I don't know, it's probably going to take a lot from that one. Let's see what it does. And to be fair, I could keep it and Boolean union it back together again, so not a big deal there. Looks like it's going to touch that one. I think it's going to touch this yellow box too. That's going to be sweet. It looks like it's going to touch this bottom one. And let's just see what it does. Spacebar. I'm going to go straight through it. And delete away. See what it gets rid of. Okay. So a couple things. Nice. Definitely not too shabby. And what's great is it remained to have that composition from the top. So it's kind of nice. I know my D1 project, we do this quite literally, right? But now we're doing it in seconds, right? And how different that project 1 would have been, right, if you had this technology. But it forces us to think about it, to spatially be aware. And that's looking pretty sweet so far, at least where I'd like you to be. for the next step of the project. Now, this doesn't conclude exercise 3 or assignment 3, but essentially it does conclude this iteration. So I still need 3 more, so why start over when I could basically just copy, right? And I can even take my same spot here, copy it, one over there, and oops, my bad. Sorry, I know that confuses the heck out of a lot of us. And we can, oh, too much. Let's try that again. I love edit undo, don't you? Oh, copy. Take that one and that one. So as you can see, I can get all 3 just like that. And I can go ahead and mix and match. I mean, obviously I could change this one. Although, don't get me wrong, I may have wire cutted a bit custom, right? So this might be not very different of an iteration. But I could switch some things up. You know, in terms of the grid, maybe I can actually make a new grid. So I can turn this grid off and develop a new grid based off of that other grid that I came up with in the beginning. So again, they don't have to be completely different, you know, look like they may have been made by different people. Really, they are just iterations. However, once we are finished with our iterations, what I would like you to do is basically set up 2 views, and let's maybe go back to our instructions. So I'm going to go ahead and get this one, copy. We'll call it step 3.5, where we actually did the work. And again, we'll keep it for later just in case we need it. And staying very organized. Let's zoom in back into our object, zoom selected. Awesome. Let's check it out in rendered view, sorry. Oh no, I accidentally moved my grids. You guys see that? So again, I'm so glad I stay organized, and I'm so glad I keep track of things because I can just do Command Z. And I accidentally turned off my grid layer, and I need to move that as well. It happens to me all the time. If I had $1. Anyway, make sure that you have all the layers enacted or enabled that you want to make a copy of course. So in my case, I'll make a copy of that one, and we'll try again. Not a big deal. So not too shabby. Let's check out that last piece. It says, sorry, yeah, that was step 5, of course, compose the 3D model abstraction we just did. And in our case, what we'd like to display for our printout is actually 2 views and the composition itself. So not really a big deal there. I will need the original composition, so I'll take this piece, and let's say we went with that one. So I'll take that piece, copy. And again, I just kind of need my 11 by 17. So let's give that rectangle. And in my case, I'm going to do 110 feet by 170 feet, because that would be technically also an 11 by 17 ratio. And again, we're not to any scale. So again, I'm going to kind of set up my board or my page. Floor plan should probably be a little bit bigger. In fact, we could make it 1/4 scale. For those of you who are taking D4 or have taken D4, I'm going to ask that your floor plan be at 1/4 scale, right? And we'll leave it at that. Of course, if you're still in D1, D2, or D3, you don't necessarily have to have it to scale. I would say it can kind of really be any size there. However, I do happen to know that 1/4 or 1/8 actually will fit. How about this? At least a graphic scale, something of that line, because I will say this might be a little bit big for 1/4 scale. Let's see, 30 feet. What would 30 feet be? Actually quite small. Yeah, you could do 1/4 scale. Should be okay. But let's get 2 views, and this is definitely what I was talking about. I might want to get some of this stuff out of the way, and I might definitely want to take off, what do you call it, the Seattle background, right? Because that would be not exactly easy to take off in terms of Photoshop. And just kind of move that out of the way. I could also hide it or even turn off the layers, but I do have some layers enacted. So I want to set up my views, and I want to make them look good. I want to make them look architectural. So I know I kind of previewed it before, but I really would appreciate either a 2-point perspective or some sort of perspective, right? So we're gonna go ahead and set up our views, and I will need kind of my last week's tutorial in the rendering process. So I might want to right click, get my rendering settings going. Obviously I don't want the Seattle library. I'm gonna switch back to Studio, and of course a studio environment. You can do this in a rendered view. However, be careful. Some computers, they really freak out at this. And it looks like I still have my background going on. I'm gonna go with the default material for the ground. And as you can see, I need my sun in there. Maybe even a skylight. It really brightens up the shot. In my case, I could go with a solid color too, especially if I'm kind of just going for that initial effect. However, I don't think I've gotten to necessarily go over the camera in detail. So I'm going to type in camera, enter. Absolutely nothing happens because you have to show the camera. Again, nothing will happen because, well, I'm technically in the camera's viewport right now. So as you can see, there is my camera, that cone of vision. And again, stop me if I've gone over this, but maybe it might be a good review. But as you can see, it directly controls that cone of vision. And as I spin around, even the cone is moving as well. So those two views, I think it's really open to interpretation here. I think one of those views should at least be from the outside ground perspective. So I don't want to be a drone like I am right now, but I want to actually be closer to the ground and almost treat it as if it was a 6 foot tall person. As you can see here, my stationary point is pretty high. And fake it till I make it. Right, that's about a 6 foot man. And just seeing what best view I have to expose and show off this object. Not gonna lie, that's looking pretty good just right there, right? I want to get it into view a little bit more, right? Maybe I need to zoom out just a little bit. Maybe I need to control my sun, right? So I'm gonna type in sun, enter. And as you can see, I can control the intensity. Usually I leave that about the same. Usually what I like to do is, of course, control the shadows on the inside and the outside. So coming in from maybe like an eastern sun, not too shabby. And we fake it till we make it. That's looking pretty cool. I like that. This is definitely what we don't want because, well, there's no shadows on the object. And again, we don't really want that either because, well, it doesn't really show off what we can do with the shadows, and it's kind of ambiguous. It's like, where is the sun coming from? So again, picking this one or something like that. I don't know, I can't decide today. That's looking pretty sweet though. I can't appreciate the light and the darkness that's going on in there. Could even turn down the intensity if the skylight's too much. But again, fake it till we make it. We can also make like a sunset, and you can see that it kind of gets kind of yellow. Be careful with that. Don't get me wrong, it is dramatic, but we don't really want yellow sculpture. So that's looking pretty sweet, pretty dramatic there. Maybe a little bit more intense. Love it. We could decide to actually take a screenshot here, or we can render it out ourselves as well. So going back to our studio environment, I kind of want to get that to work. I'm not sure why it's stuck on the Seattle library, but let's see if we can get it back on studio. Yeah, it's really kind of just stuck on that background. It could be because of the option. Oh, there it is. No? Jeez. Man, it is really stuck on the Seattle library. I could reset it to defaults. Let's see what that does. Yes. Oh, all right. And there you go. Let's see what that does, though. Because I'd like to get it back to my studio environment. Yeah, there we go. So, yeah, sometimes when it's loading, it can mess up. Mine is a little bit more prone to it, especially while I'm screen recording. Especially graphic stuff seems to kind of mess up with this program specifically. So just kind of check those things. In your case, it might be very simple, but just in case you have a weird graphics card and it's doing the same thing to you, keep in mind that we sometimes do have to play around with it a little bit, of course, to get actually what we want. In my case, kind of want to see I think I accidentally messed up my studio. Maybe I overrided something. So it is correct, but I clearly overrided something. But yeah, you can definitely mess around with it. Kind of want to load another one just to kind of see what else is in there. I think I went to more types, import. Yeah, and there's a bunch of loaded ones already. So I kind of want to see what else there is. I mean, why not? There's actually a bunch of studios. I kind of want to see what the difference between Studio A. I've never actually tested it myself, so some real life trying, if you will. Ooh, that's actually looking pretty sweet. Actually, more or less what I'm usually trying to go for. I don't want those lights kind of in there. It looks kind of silly, just because they're not real. But that's looking actually pretty sweet. It looks like I need to change my sun again. My bad. Totally have to do that all over again. But now I've dialed in my settings, so it shouldn't be too bad. I'll switch to manual control and dial that in a little bit better. And as you can see, it resetted my settings. So sometimes you just gotta reset. Sometimes you've done actually way too much to your settings and you don't even realize what you did. That's definitely been me a couple of times. That's looking pretty sweet. Actually, I'm gonna go with that one. A little bit down on the intensity. I kind of like that darkness that it has, right? That it's almost too bright. Like there's kind of a highlight there. And again, you might not be able to see that in the projector so much, but yeah, that's looking pretty sweet. We'll keep it at there. Maybe I don't. Oh, forgot we can change the azimuth as well. So yeah, that's looking pretty sweet. I'm gonna go ahead and save that view. So I'm gonna right click, set view, and go to my named views. And in my case, it's already there. So I just need to plus sign, and on the Windows, it does show a little save box. So you'll have to do a save box. So I'm gonna do view 1. And I need a second view. So that second view, I'm gonna let it be for you. You can open to interpretation. You can do a 1-point perspective inside your model if you'd like, or viewing from the outside, right? Sometimes that could be pretty sweet. I may need to refocus on an object and zoom in. Oh, that's looking pretty sweet. I might want something like that. It might be too much. And there might be actually nothing to look at. So maybe we don't look outside the project yet, but something like that is looking pretty sweet. Or maybe it's just a close-up. I don't know. Maybe we have to fly around it a little bit to actually see what we get out of it. Maybe we even need to change the shade and shadow to maybe reveal something better about it. I don't know. I'm a big fan of Louis Kahn, and he's definitely this guy who did these kind of gigantic circles. So, you know, I'm really digging that piece, and I might need to change up my shadows. Maybe it's a darker situation, or maybe the shadows are coming in just nicely. And again, this is something you can do with your own project, guys. I mean, in your case, in a real project, we know exactly where the sun would be. So you definitely want to set up some of that stuff, but it's a really great way to look at the entire day without ever having to build the model. So that's looking pretty sweet. Again, a little too much intensity there. And I just kind of want to double check and make sure I'm getting kind of some interesting line weight. Oh, I kind of like the shadow back down there. Kind of want a little bit more. Oh, there we go. Now we're really revealing the object here, right? Showing off that we're in the inside. Maybe dial it in just a little bit more, framing wise, and that's looking pretty sweet. I'm gonna keep that. So I'm gonna go ahead and save it and call it view number 2. And last but not least, what I would like for you to do is what I was suggesting on assignment 2 is option. It was optional that you could put the render or put some color in that assignment 2. And this one, it'll become mandatory, right? So we definitely need that view, and we want to overlap them with the lines. And I definitely want you to get in a really good practice of this, because, man, I can't tell you how many times I use this, and I'll just Photoshop the image a little bit, right? I'll draw in some stuff, and now I'll tell surfaces to just be rammed earth, and it's quite simple, right? I don't want you to get so much into the materialization of these. If you want to color them, just like we saw in Manny's, like orange pieces and plastic, I think that would be fine. Don't get too fancy with the colors. We don't want sort of rainbow unicorn throw up is what I call it, right? We don't want so many colors that we can't even understand what's going on. So, but I will change it up a little bit, because why not? You know, have fun with it. I mean, if you're not having fun, you really should probably get out of architecture, because this stuff is a lot of fun if you like this kind of stuff. But I'm gonna go ahead and make that one plastic. That was one that I made previously. Let's go ahead and make another one. So in my case, I'm gonna add a material, and I have a couple of options. I'm gonna go with I don't know, metal this time. Why not? I didn't want it to change that one, but okay, I guess I can always change it. Let's go with something blue. It's a little too blue. Let's go with something like that. Sort of a light blue going on there. It's very metallic-y, and as you can see, the reflection is like way up there. It's like super polished. So I'm gonna go with a little bit less polish. I'm gonna go with a bump texture. Oh, leather, make it look like leather. It might not actually come up in the render per se, but you can kind of see it there. It's very subtle. We can also change the scale of it. So in my case, usually I go with something small. Again, I just want it to be kind of that Toy Story 4 look, not necessarily. But as you can see, under the metal, we don't really have a lot of options here. So metal might not be the best way. That's usually why I choose plastic, because usually it lends us to have a couple of more options here, like transparency even. Obviously, we can change the clarity of it, and the reflectivity. So that's definitely what I was looking for. And again, I like plastic because, well, we can have a lot of different options with it. Speckle is usually what I like with plastic, and that's looking pretty sweet. As you can see, I already messed up my view, so I can double click and make sure that I get that view back. Maybe I want to look at this view, and of course maybe change a couple of things. And again, the color that I would choose or use would be really to reveal the spaces, so keep that in mind. Maybe I want to keep my horizontal plane similar, so I'm going to select a layer, and I'm going to select maybe plastic, and that's looking pretty sweet. Maybe I get that back plane, because you can't really see it too well, so maybe I turn it into plastic. And I can't really see that one either, so I don't know, maybe I switch it to that blue plastic. I don't know, maybe the color actually makes me want to change my shadows a bit. And as you can see, it remained on that bad shadow that I didn't want for this view. Keep in mind that when we save that view, it doesn't necessarily save the shadow. So keep that in mind. But let's go ahead and make 2D these first. So make 2D. Of course, I need to select everything, the entire project. Double click that view, then make 2D. I don't know about you, but the hidden lines here look insane, so I'm definitely going to make sure hidden lines are off, and I'm going to group my output and apply. I'm going to grab that view. As you can see, my camera's still on. But wow, you know how much time I saved by doing that? Gosh, that would have taken me forever. And as you can see, it came in pretty small, but that's okay. And now it's set up so that we can line up our image to it very nicely. Let's get our second one. So double, in our case, get everything first, double click. And in my case, I do need to change the shadows first, my bad. Or at least it's just gonna bug me. I think we settled on something a little bit more like that, without so much of an angle. That's pretty sweet. And the intensity is pretty fine there. I'll double click just to make sure that I get that exact view. Again, I'll double click many times, because if I don't get that exact view, when I try and line up the image to it, not gonna work. You can sit there for hours, it's just never going to line up, because this is slightly different than that, and it's slightly different than that, and it's slightly different than that. And it's very easy to accidentally do that. And even that, I mean, you can barely notice it sometimes. And sometimes you're just like not even looking at the screen and, oh yeah, it'll work. But that one little mistake of 2 seconds could be solved by just double clicking again. Right, so I always double click on my view before I make 2D, just in case I've never made that clear. Pretty sure I have, but I'm gonna go ahead and apply. And my goodness, thank you, Rhino, because if I had to do that in my Graphics 2 class, you know, I might struggle a little bit, right? But of course, Ellis knows it's gonna get a little bit easier, right? And that this technology definitely helps us. And in my case, I don't need some of these lines. Maybe even the composition at the bottom, I probably don't need that, my bad. And I could probably just delete that by the layer, or just come in and, of course, delete what is unnecessary. So in my case, I'm just kind of coming back and, of course, deleting what I don't need. So that's looking pretty good. Last but not least, I'd either take this into Illustrator and I'd take that photo and put it right behind it. However, I need that photo first. So I'll need to either render it or take a screenshot. In my case, let's just go ahead and render it, just because we've already gone over some of the tutorial that it takes to do that. So let's hit render. In my case, maybe I change my settings and maybe I stick to a window, because it's going to waste a bunch of time rendering all this space that I don't actually need. So there is actually a render selection tool. So if you right click on this, I believe it's still here. Actually, I should have double checked on this one. Pretty sure we can still do a selection. So let's make sure. Override render, no. Render channels, no. Wireframe, no. Pretty sure that, okay, current option. We can actually do a specific viewport or the named view. Pretty sure I can do a snapshot. Can I just do it? No, it just wants me to select it. Oh, okay. So we can do different snapshots now, but that's not exactly, there used to be an option, and actually it might still be on Rhino 7 or even Rhino 6, but you can actually more or less even take like a small square, and you can just render that small square, again, to save some time or anything like that. In my case, I'm just gonna select the named view, so of course viewport view 1. However, if you come across that option, let us know for sure. In our case, yeah, definitely view, name view, not step 2, view 1. And of course, there's my viewport there. And at least for the sake of tutorial, I'm going to choose a draft quality, just so it'll go a little bit faster. I'm going to go ahead and press render. It'll bring up that window. And my computer's actually pretty quick at this stuff, not too bad. And just like that, it's done. And even arguably from there, I would usually just take a screenshot, or, you know, of course, do it the right way, and we can save it off, and we'll put it as our view 1 photo. Couple of options here. Again, you can either do that. Oh, did it crash on me? Oh no, it crashed on me. And okay, goodness, scared me. However, it's doing that thing again where it basically kind of gets stuck on my render view. It does this while screen recording. It doesn't do it while, for some reason. And it like really gets stuck there. You see that? It's like, it's there and I can use it, but anyway, I'll push it off to the side. Maybe it'll start working later. Anyway, hopefully you don't experience the same thing. It's definitely because you're screen recording and using a lot of graphic information. Anyway. We'll set that view again to something a little less confusing. There we go. So that's looking pretty sweet. And last but not least, we want to set up that view and make sure that it aligns up. So I'm going to go to my top view and basically type in picture and put that back in. Ooh. Of course, spell picture correctly. And take that view. So in my case, as you can see, it's showing my camera right now, if you see that. You can always type in camera and turn off. So hide the camera, just in case you're like, what is that thing? Right. Oh man, did I nail it on the first try? Nope, definitely not. And as you can see, my render seems a little cattywampus. I accidentally brought it in wrong. So let's try that again. Picture. So be careful when to hold shift and when not to hold shift. I'm not holding shift right now, and it's staying in proportion. However, in Rhino, if you hold shift, it goes out of proportion. So again, kind of goes backwards. Let's see if I can guess it first try. I'm gonna go with there. See if I nail it. Holy crap, I'm getting pretty good. Doesn't always happen like that. I got pretty close though. I don't know, try it out, have some fun with it. Right. But of course now I do need to hold shift to keep that proportional. And dial it in, right? We're gonna get pretty close. It should line up literally exactly. What I usually like to do is get one corner of my side and then get the other corner, right? And usually you can start to tell just how off it is based on that. So it looks like it was a little tiny bit small. So again, holding shift and just little micro changes. Of course, moving that image and nailing it. Look at that. Fantastic. I can further trim it if I want to. So if I do a rectangle, maybe I just want that piece. Maybe I don't want to chop off my shadows there. So maybe I get that piece. Sweet. And that's looking pretty nice. So I'm going to go ahead and trim it. And again, do a lot of the work here in Rhino, because I mean, why would I do all that? Of course, I'm going to need 2 views for each. So in my case, shaded, right? And I'd make 2D, and of course, oh, we already made 2D of that one. We'd get the rendered view of that one as well. So, oh, accidentally changed this view, I guess. My bad. We'll go back to top. And for the most part, we just need to kick this into Illustrator. I may need to actually change some things here. For instance, well, I made a lot of these parts thick, so I might need to offset some of these pieces, not offset surface, obviously, just a regular offset. And we'll go with, say, that. We'll go with that one. I think we made that one pretty thick. That one was pretty solid. So I may need to still, change some things here, or add some thickness, or even extrude these, right? That could be actually another way. For instance, like this piece, if you want to offset it or turn it into a rectangle, you could also just type in rectangle and give it that thickness and hatch it, right? So we can take that whole thing, hatch. Well, not the whole thing, we'll select boundary mode, and we can go, well, I want that piece, that piece, that piece. And as you can see, sometimes it's easier to actually do this in the beginning, especially if you know what you're gonna do. But at least for this project, we knew we were gonna be pretty artistic and that we were gonna have to go back and forth between things. So as you can see, I have a lot of overlapping pieces, but not the end of the world. Enter, and we can keep that piece. But that should make it, of course, a lot easier in Illustrator. Yes, sir?
How do you want the line weight? Like the structure, or do you want the big solid?
I'm thinking more artistic, so line weights, right? When it comes to the composition, it's not necessarily a floor plan yet. We don't need to show up arrows or even the stuff above us, right? We don't need to go architectural graphic standards on it and show all the hidden lines above us or anything like that. Really, more or less, this should be kind of an artistic composition. Think back to actually design one. I've got a couple of them actually out there right now where it's just basically line weight, general thickness of things, that kind of thing. Absolutely. Great question though. Fantastic. Lastly, I'd want to put my name, maybe title, and obviously export this and get it into Illustrator. I'm not going to go over that today just because we've already been doing that for assignment 1 and assignment 2, so I don't want to make this video any longer than it has to be. However, we're reaching about 9:20, so I would say if we can give it a solid hour, guys, ladies and gentlemen, that would be great, and get out of here by 10:20. So, of course, any questions that maybe I missed or maybe you want to see again? Nothing at all, guys? Okay.
So you want that kind of render, right?
Correct. Yeah, something along this line so that we have that line weight and we have that render.
So you don't want like realistic renders. Like flip motion type render?
Don't put like rammed earth or concrete. I mean, if you want to practice with like concrete and wood and steel, I think that would be okay for the design 4 students. But if you're not really at that level of studio, if you haven't really talked about material yet, we're going to get some really weird stuff where we're going to have like floating rammed earth and, all kinds of crazy stuff. I think it's okay if it's colored and that you start diving into the material. However, not every single thing has to be materialed in that regard. We do want to be able to see it. And if it has to stay white so that we can see it, that's fine too. Keep in mind, it will have a line weight to it. So again, that might start to be too much, both line weight and materiality. But you're more than welcome to test. Absolutely. It is an exercise. So by all means, make the best out of it. Great question. But yeah, I would more or less encourage, if you're not in D4 yet, just stick to colors. Absolutely. Great question. Any others, guys? Fair enough. We'll leave it at that for the recording today.